All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our second webinar. We hosted a Social Media 101 seminar or webinar last month. And if you haven't been able to see that, that is available on our website, katiepesha.com. Today, we'll be covering Social Media 201, so a little more advanced. Joining me this morning is Patrick Powers from Powers Digital. He's a frequent collaborator with KP Consulting Group, so some of our clients out there may recognize him. He brings a wealth of knowledge in terms of digital strategy, search engine optimization, analytics, measurement, and dynamic content creation. So we're very, very lucky to have Patrick with us again this morning. And Patrick, thank you for being here.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So a few quick just housekeeping notes before we jump in. We are recording this session and it will be available for free on our website after the session. So probably later today, or at least for sure by the start of next week. That's katiepesha.com. Please keep yourselves muted when you're not speaking. If you do accidentally unmute, we'll probably mute you just in case we're hearing background noise. If you have any questions as we're going, please don't hesitate to raise your hand or to put a question into chat. We'll be monitoring that closely and we'll be asking questions as we go, and hopefully have some time at the end for some sessions, for some questions as well. And also just for you to be able to take note, we do have 2 additional webinars planned for later this year, October 7th. This will be a new version of the Social Media 101 session with a focus on year-end awareness, building for stewardship. And then November 4th will be another Social Media 201 and a more advanced look at the platform that builds from this webinar. So hopefully you can join us or be an advocate to others to join us for these sessions. We're hoping that they're useful for you. So today's presentation, we'll be covering advanced account management, beyond Facebook and Instagram, social media measurement and reporting, and then social media advertising. And Patrick has a lot of tips to share with us. So I don't want to spend too much time in the intro, but I do want to make sure that we take a moment of prayer. So we'll begin with a prayer and then I'll pass it off to Patrick. This morning we'll be sharing or praying the prayer for communicators. So join together in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, let the good news of your marvelous deeds fall on every ear, and let all tongues rejoice in your wisdom, your compassion, your faithfulness, and your love. Make me bold, and let me share your word with those who you desire to reach. As my heart overflows with your love, speak through me. Let me proclaim your glory and your majesty, and tell of the kindness you have shown your people. This I ask through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So Patrick, thanks again for being with us today. And I'm going to turn it to you to walk us through the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, Katie. It's always good to see you on Zoom, at least. So just as a reminder, this is our agenda for today. So I know a lot of people may have been with our Social Media 101 that we presented a couple weeks back. Social Media 201, as I was explaining a little bit earlier to Katie and Liz, is a little bit more complex. Yes, the topics are a little bit more advanced, but the, excuse me, the levels of expertise can kind of be all over the board. And so I really do want this to be a conversation today. I certainly have planned time for questions at the end. We can run through specific scenarios. We can ask specific questions, because I recognize that one person's idea of advanced social media might be far different than another person's idea of advanced social media. And hopefully we'll have enough people on the call that we can have a good quality conversation and you can take home something today that can help you in the work that you do on a regular basis. So getting started, I did recycle a slide from last time. And I do this very intentionally, which is to say that Social Media 101, Social Media 201, none of it really matters if you don't have a strategy in place behind it. We can go in depth into all of the tips and tricks for all of the tools that make social media fun to manage and fun to use. But if you are engaged in social media on behalf of your ministry or organization, and you do not have a strategy in place of what are you doing in this space, who are we trying to reach, what channels are appropriate for our ministry or organization, how are we going to get it done, and how will we know it was a success? If you can't answer those questions, then learning all of the nuance of the tools and tips and tricks, is not going to be as fruitful as it could be. And so I leave this slide in the presentation intentionally to just review, to say a strategy should be your square one in every situation regarding anything that you're going to do in social. So, all right. With that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about advanced account management, and from a kind of a professional standpoint of how do we manage the social media content that we generate. A lot of what we're going to talk about today is going to be Facebook and Instagram specific, primarily because that's where we see the most benefit in the ministries and organizations. We will touch on some additional management tools, but we're going to stick primarily with Facebook and Instagram. And just as a reminder, again, there are different ways in which we can generate and produce and share content in Facebook. There are profiles, there are pages, and there are groups. We're going to focus primarily on pages. These are perhaps the most professional and outward-facing mechanism that Facebook allows us to have, that allows us to converse with those online in a professional way. Pages are a requirement to do social advertising. So when we talk about that kind of at the end of our presentation today, know that it all kind of hinges on having a Facebook page. So with Facebook, if you have a Facebook page, great, we're off to the races so far. With Instagram, it's a little bit different. Instagram accounts for business do allow you to set up a professional account. So by default, Instagram, different than Facebook. When you create an Instagram account, by default, they all kind of look and feel the same. By default, those are personal profile Instagram accounts that allow you to, just do what Instagram does, which is share images across the board. There is a second level of account management in Instagram that is considered a professional account. Switching from a personal profile to a business profile or a professional account is relatively easy. In settings in your Instagram account, you can find account, and there should be, if you haven't done it already, an option to switch to a professional account. Now, it's only going to ask one additional question because you've already set up this profile on behalf of your ministry or organization, is it's going to ask the category into which you would like to be placed. Catholic Church is a category. There are hundreds of different categories, and you can play around with what category might best fit your professional organization. But the reason we encourage you to then create this professional account from Instagram is that we're going to start to open up additional doors about how we can post, where we can manage, and the data that we're going to receive. The first step in doing that is in connecting those two accounts. So if you have a Facebook page and you have an Instagram account, whether you knew this or not, but they are actually owned by the same organization, Meta. Facebook has renamed its kind of umbrella organization to Meta not too terribly long ago. Facebook in and of itself is still a product that they own and operate and manage. Instagram is also a property that they own, operate, and manage. And owning both of those properties, they have made it pretty easy actually to connect the two. Connecting the two does allow, some efficiency in terms of how you post and share content, but it also opens up some additional doors when we start talking about social advertising. So to connect the two is actually, again, a pretty straightforward and easy process. It starts by opening up your Facebook page, selecting settings, going down the left-hand side there, and you'll see Instagram that appears there on the left. And if your accounts are not connected, it will encourage you to connect that account. Make sure that the allow access to Instagram messages and inbox is toggled on, and then click continue. You'll enter your Instagram account's username and password and select login, which will then connect the two accounts. One of the things of note is that if your Instagram account is not a professional account, you can still connect the two. You can then, share data and publish between the two different platforms. The hiccup then becomes if you were trying to then get data out of Instagram or advertise through an Instagram account through Meta or Facebook's Ads Manager program. If it is not a professional account, you're going to run into some hiccups. And it will tell you on this login screen that it will suggest to you that, hey, you should consider making this a Instagram professional account, and following those steps and reconnecting those two is going to set you down the right path to some of the advanced features that we'll be chatting about today. So in terms of managing, Facebook, Instagram, or some of the additional third-party applications that may exist, there are a number of different options. So we'll talk briefly kind of about each one of these, pluses or minuses. The one that we're going to spend the most time on is going to be Creator Studio, in part because, one, it's free. And so for a lot of ministries and organizations within the church, the FREE price tag is usually the most appealing. There are a lot of features and functionality that Creator Studio allows, and we'll spend some time at the end of our presentation today inside Creator Studio. But the benefits are really great. It specifically is limited to Facebook and Instagram. So if you are tweeting or if you are TikToking on behalf of your ministry organization, Creator Studio is not going to be the place that you can manage that. But again, for most of our audience, Creator Studio is going to be a great third-party management application. And I'll show some of the stuff that I really enjoy or find myself using on a regular basis on behalf of organizations. The other 5 applications that I have listed here are all third-party applications, meaning that they are not owned or operated by Facebook, by Instagram, by Meta, or whoever the organization might be. These aren't specifically owned by Twitter or LinkedIn or any social media application. These are specific services that are available that can help you in managing multiple accounts. All of these are going to come with a price tag to do a lot of the cool stuff that you may want to do with it. The exception is a handful of them will offer free trials. Hootsuite does offer a free option, which is a very much pared down version of this particular application. All of these have pluses and minuses. All of them, if you're going to use them to their fullest extent, are going to come with a price tag. That price tag can be anywhere from $5 a month to $50 a month to hundreds of dollars a month. I do not see a huge number of people using some of the more expensive versions of this, at least within the Catholic Church. More often than not, what you want to accomplish can be done either through the native platforms themselves. So whether you are posting directly into Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and whatnot, or through Creator Studio. Talking about Creator Studio, the benefits, I think, for most ministries and organizations are really great. They allow you to switch between multiple pages on Facebook or multiple Instagram accounts, and it ties between the two rather seamlessly. You can use this space to create a post, add a story, upload a video, or even go live. The additional benefit to Creator Studio is that it does provide you some recommendations for monetization. It does provide you some additional insights as to what's going on with your particular pages or platforms, and a quick summary of recent posts. Creator Studio has no cost. It simply requires you to log into both either your Facebook page or your Instagram account. And it allows you to really see a wealth of information kind of all in one place. If you have been managing a Facebook page for a while, you may have noticed that it encourages you to kind of move your activity to within Creator Studio. And please note, I am not a paid person, on behalf of Facebook or Instagram, but I have found this tool to be particularly useful, and for those operating social media on behalf of a ministry or organization, a very cost-effective way to manage this content. So inside of Creator Studio, some of the benefits is that it works very similar to posting features on a Facebook page. So if you've gone into a page or if you've used the mobile app inside of Creator Studio, it's going to work very similar. What I'm showing here is just an example. I happen to be the administrator for the St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Church page and use Creator Studio from time to time to post on its behalf. And we'll start just highlighting a couple of items and where some things are that exist that might be cool for you to use moving forward. So the first is just simply posting texts and links. You notice I posted in there, this is a test post for training purposes only. Within that box, if you were to post a functioning HTTP or HTTPS link to a website, that copy of that particular link will show up in that space, but it doesn't always have to. Posting it in that space will generate a link preview, but if you don't want that particular copy to show up in that particular space for that particular link, you can delete it to clean up that particular headline. That link preview will still exist, and you see it there on the right. So for example, I grabbed the link to the upcoming parish picnic page. We're looking to share that particular page out. And so the link preview exists there on the right. Adding locations to these particular posts do have some benefits. Once that post goes live, you will see that location tagged in the header of the post with a "is at" label. So it will say, in this particular case, St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Church is at, in this case, it's at St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Church. But if you have events in other locations, that location can show up there. There are a couple of benefits that are done to adding locations to posts. If that location is separate from the page that is posting or sharing that particular piece of information, that post will show up in the feed for that particular location. So as an example, St. Michael the Archangel is having its confirmation Mass at the Cathedral Basilica. So if we were to share content from our confirmandi who are attending that particular Mass, and we wanted to share that image and say St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Church is at Cathedral Basilica, and here's some images from the confirmation, then that would show up in the Cathedral Basilica's feed as, hey, someone has shared content from your particular location that gets flagged by them, and that provides an additional opportunity for sharing that particular piece of content. In addition, as covered in Facebook 101, what shows up in that algorithm of everyone else's feed is in part due to what you have looked at in the past and where you are located currently. Adding that location provides an opportunity for people who are nearby to say, oh, wait, this is content happening of an organization that I like or follow nearby. And so it has a greater propensity to show up in my feed. But maybe I like one of those organizations. So maybe I personally like the Cathedral Basilica page, and adding that as a location would also increase the propensity that I would see that particular piece of information as well. If the user hovers over that tagged location, they can see more information about it, can be directed to that associated page if one exists. In addition to tagging location, you can also tag a sponsor. So if you are operating in partnership with another organization, another ministry, you can tag them as a sponsor if they have page approvals turned on. So this isn't going to be something that you can carte blanche say that we are constantly partnering with, organization X, Y, or Z. If they have those page approvals turned on, they'll need to add you to their approved creator list. And you can start to promote that content as a partnership and working in partnership with that other ministry or organization. You can then tag and publish really any post that you create in line with that particular partnership. But all of these features are available, and can help you manage through Creator Studio. One of the perhaps best features, though, that I like to utilize is this idea to schedule posts into the future. Now, you could always have done this through the page in and of itself, but I find it particularly easy inside of Creator Studio because you can see not just this scheduled post, but any upcoming scheduled posts that you have. You can't do this through the mobile app on Facebook, but you can through the Creator Studio mobile app. And you can schedule up to the next 75 days. Now, the beauty of scheduling posts, there are a ton of great advantages. We're going to know when Advent starts. We're going to know when Lent begins. We're going to know when Easter is. The church does a very nice job of setting out the calendar ahead for us. And so if we are creating content around the church calendar, it's very easy to set that content to appear at the appropriate point in time. If you were having a parish picnic, as I've highlighted here, we want that particular piece of content to show at that particular point in time. It is very simple to do. What I have put in red here, however, is the big flashing information that I encourage everyone to be aware of, is that real life continues to happen even though you may have scheduled out a post. Schedules change, things happen, and I encourage you to always, always, always be aware of what you have scheduled to post. So managing social media, yes, means creating content on the regular. Scheduling posts can make a social media manager's life a whole lot easier. But should something change, should something happen, should a tornado strike and knock down the building where you plan on meeting, what you would not want to have happen is a post the following day saying, meet us at this particular location because our event is still happening. So I always say this is a great tool for people to use, but just be mindful and just be careful that things change, things happen. And so to be aware of all of the posts that you have scheduled out in advance. So through Creator Studio, the beautiful thing is that you can also post to your Instagram feed. So Instagram posting works similarly to Facebook posting, although this interface, unlike the Facebook version, allows you to post to both platforms at the same time. So if you go directly to, I want to post on Instagram, you can load up the image here, and you see I've just grabbed an image of the Cathedral Basilica. And at the bottom there, and I've highlighted there, is that you can post to Facebook. Now, in the Facebook view screen, it does not say also post this to Instagram. So if you're going to post once, send to multiple locations from Creator Studio, I encourage you to start with the Instagram feed location. You'll notice that little checkbox at the bottom. And then again, in the bottom right-hand side where it says publish, you are going to be able to schedule these posts. But again, I leave the red text up there to say, yes, schedules change, things happen. Always be aware of what post you have scheduled. Now with Instagram, and this is not true with Facebook, you are limited to 10 images per your post. And so, excuse me, you can put up to 10 images in that particular space. They will get shared to Instagram. Anything that you put within the copy across the top will also be pulled in. You can also add locations. You can add hashtags. You can do all of the fun stuff that you would generally do on Instagram in this particular space. And it will also get shared to Facebook if that's where you intend for it to go. Additionally, I just wanted to point your attention toward the advanced settings in the upper right-hand corner, is that through Instagram in the advanced settings, you can also turn on or off comments for a specific post. Now, by default, I always encourage people to allow that conversation to happen. More often than not, even if it is a challenging situation, I encourage people to engage in that conversation and to answer those questions or comments. Now, I'm also not naive enough to know some topics are going to be more sensitive than others. And if you have content that you know, okay, we want to share this because we need to get this news out there, but we don't necessarily want to be engaging in a conversation about it, you can turn off those comments in the advanced settings for that particular post. And additionally, at the bottom of this post, I did highlight that while it's not a requirement, these tools do allow you the opportunity to write alternative text for the images that you are posting or sharing. Alternative text is simply code that appears in the background that for people who may be visually impaired, it will read to them that text, or they can read the text directly about what is contained within that image. Oftentimes I see people sharing images that include text, whether it is sign up or the event date or something that they're trying to convey through text in an image. If you find yourself in that situation, I strongly urge you to then duplicate whatever text is within that image within that alternative text space as well. So, okay. So even though it's not intended to be, that is my commercial for Creator Studio. If you are, have simply posted to the page in the past or simply posted through Instagram in the past, I think that Creator Studio really is a great tool to become a little bit more efficient at the management of that posting. So the next section, we're going to talk about just a little bit beyond Facebook and Instagram. Now, we don't have, specific, a whole presentation about each one of these, even though you very much could. But we'll just kind of touch base on, Patrick, why are we so much focused on Facebook and Instagram? Why haven't we delved into something, like Twitter? And we'll talk about, each one of these individually, just very briefly here. But at the end, when we open up for questions, I would love if anyone has, deep experience to share their own thoughts on some of these additional platforms. I'd love to hear those as well. So Twitter, for those that may or may not know, is a social networking platform that you can post updates, tag companies or people in your posts, and you can ask questions, respond to questions via tweet. Why should people be tweeting? One, Twitter is very easy. It is, posts are short, easy to craft. The platform's pretty intuitive, and there's just not much of a learning curve to do it. Now, why not tweet on behalf of our ministry or organization? Is that, the same reason why it's so easy to tweet is, it is simplistic and Twitter is fast and it is constantly moving. People like to use Twitter as a place to vent their frustrations with companies or organizations. And it is incredibly time sensitive because it's so easy and people are tweeting at such a furious pace. You might be generating content, but if people are not engaged with it, it is gone as quickly as it appeared. And posts can be easily missed. From a ministry or organization perspective, Twitter is pretty labor intensive in that to get conversation going requires a lot of work and requires you to be in there on a regular basis. And that's great if you have the time, effort, and energy to put into Twitter. I think that there's definitely value there for ministries or organizations. But sometimes it's harder to get the traction that you can get from Facebook or Instagram on that platform for the amount of time that it takes. Additionally, LinkedIn is a fantastic social networking platform, about 300 million active daily users. This is really a career networking site, and you probably have a LinkedIn profile yourself. LinkedIn does allow organizations and brands, so that would be churches, ministries, organizations, to have a presence on LinkedIn as a LinkedIn page. Those pages can do a nice job in establishing credibility within your professional community. It is a nice place to highlight what it might be like to work at your organization, highlighting people who work there and the accomplishments that they have is, can be very, very beneficial to a brand or organization. Now, with LinkedIn, the question is from a marketing perspective, does it fit in with what you are trying to do or what you are trying to promote? And yes, while it is a free platform like some of these others, if you are trying to utilize LinkedIn to do job recruitment, you can post jobs there for free. But if you really want to gain traction, the challenge with LinkedIn is that a lot of the cool bells, whistles, and features do cost money, especially if you want to acquire some detailed information about your users, email, contact information, and whatnot. Still, a good platform worthwhile using, but just know what you want to do in that particular space. The next that we'll talk just briefly about is TikTok. So TikTok, for those that may not know, is a short form video sharing app that allows users to create and share 15-second videos on any topic. Why to be on TikTok? TikTok has experienced explosive growth. It is the potential to become really a next big marketing, social networking platform if it isn't there already. It is a highly creative, highly experimental site where people are creating content that really is impressive and amazing. It has a young and captive audience. This is not the platform for, I hate to say it, for me or my parents. The 40 pluses are not the primary audience on TikTok, but it is very young and it is very creative. There are some great people in the church today creating great TikTok content. The challenge of why not to be on content is that TikTok is that producing regular content in this space can be expensive and time consuming. It is hard to be that creative all the time, especially if it's not your full-time job. And inauthentic content in this space is easily sniffed out by this audience and can quickly get dismissed. It's limited to mobile, and it is not always the easiest to use unless you are using it on a professional basis and personal basis, and you kind of are familiar with the platform. It's not easy to spin up, hey, let's spin up a TikTok account for our church and let's just be awesome in that platform. being that creative and being that experimental does take time, effort, and energy. And then the last one that we'll just kind of touch on is Snapchat. So Snapchat is this based around this idea that content that you share, a picture, a video, or a message, aka a snap, is sent to those people that you want it to receive it, and it appears only for a short period of time. It is temporary, it is ephemeral, and it is encouraged to be a natural flow of communication. Now, why to be on Snapchat? With a business Snapchat account, you can do some fun and creative things. You can create specific filters, you can advertise, so you can reach specific audiences, and it is a pretty decent tool at creating a very specific community around the snaps that you're creating. Now, while it is a great tool for building those communities, it's not always great for businesses. And so before you commit your time and resources to this platform, we just want to make sure that your audience is there. And are you going to have people to communicate with through this platform? And for those who are not familiar with the interface, the learning curve can be steep. There's different screens and different settings that would be imperative to learn and know before delving too terribly deep into Snapchat. So with all of these platforms and with the strategy that you've set in place, one of the key things is to understand, is what we're doing successful? Is what we're doing, can we report out to our supervisor or our supervisor's supervisor to say, oh, Patrick's not just hanging out on TikTok all day, or Patrick's not just Instagramming all day. He actually is helping our ministry or organization grow. And so the first step in measurement and reporting is determining those key performance indicators, so those KPI, those metrics that exist within these platforms that are demonstrating that the time spent in them is actually worth it to my ministry or my organization. And so this goes back to Social Media 101, as well as to the first slide that we discussed today, in terms of what are we trying to do? What are our goals for our particular social media efforts? And then aligning those goals with the metrics that exist within each one of these platforms. Now, the data that these platforms collect is incredible. You can download rows and rows and columns of data from various places, from various platforms. That data is not going to mean much unless you can take the time to look at it and understand what you're looking at and convey what it means to your ministry or organization. And so I encourage people to create a very simple chart, such as the one that I'm showing, to demonstrate, okay, if our goal is to build awareness, what are those key metrics that we can all kind of agree that we are going to look to that indicate we are building awareness? We don't need people to land on our website if we're just building awareness. We don't need people to sign up for our event. We don't need people to show up in person. We're just building awareness. And if that is our goal, then for each of these platforms, we're going to look for different KPI. If our goal is to increase engagement, to engage in conversation, to answer people's questions, those KPI are going to be a little bit different. And on a platform by platform basis, those KPI are called slightly different things. Whether it's an engagement, a like, a favorite, those are all very similar actions that people take in social media platforms. And so coming to an agreement that that would be an indication that we are engaging those people helps clarify in our reporting what we want, the message we want to send, and the story that we are telling about what is happening here. So once those KPIs are settled and we kind of come to some agreement of, okay, if we are trying to drive website traffic, we're going to look at the end of the day on website conversions. We don't necessarily care how many comments we get on a post. If our goal is drive website conversions, that's what we're going to look at. We have settled all of those KPIs and what we want to know and understand. The next is then to kind of build a report to find a way to talk about what we're doing in social media in a way that makes sense to our supervisors who may not be involved in social media, or our supervisors. And so very simply, I encourage you to draft a report that does a couple of things, that it provides just a quick snapshot. We don't need to overwhelm people with the data that is available if we are in there on a day-to-day basis. We want to focus on the ministry or organization's goals and identify opportunities we see to reach those goals in those platforms. We don't want to sugarcoat the facts. Not everything is thumbs up, likes. Tough conversations are happening in this space, but we also want to keep it short. Just because as a professional communicator, you might be in this space all day, every day. Your supervisor is not, and they're just going to need the bullet points. I'll share just kind of an example of a report, just to kind of show how this might look. What I'm showing you here is actually a snapshot of a report that I provide for a client, and they focus on 3 platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And so, sometimes people will get in their head, oh, well, we really need to be on Instagram, or, oh, we really need to be doing more on LinkedIn. And looking at the data allows us to see, okay, where is our audience in this particular client's case? Oh, it's definitely in Facebook. For every time that we post, on average, that post reaches 950 people. Every time we post something on LinkedIn, it on average reaches 7 people. So if we're going to invest additional time, effort, and energy, where do you think that we're going to be spending that time, effort, and energy? And then we calculate out, well, what is the engagement rate on that platform? So even though the average post reach is lower on LinkedIn, it does have our highest rate of engagement. So we can start to make decisions about where are we spending time, what type of content resonates with people, and are we having an impact for our ministry or organization. Now, the last little section that we kind of want to touch on is social media advertising. So everything that we've talked about today, with the exception of those handful of, Buffer, Hootsuite, Sprout Social, some of those systems that you would pay for, everything that we've talked about so far has been free. I mean, in the sense that you're not going to have an outlay of money to post that content or generate content. It's still going to cost you the time, effort, and energy to create that content and to post that content. But until this last section, everything that you can do is done with a minimal budget. Social media advertising is when we can take it to that next level to say, okay, let's put a little bit of our ministry's money behind the message that we're trying to share or get people engaged with, and let's advertise. Right? So what I wanted to do today was spend a little bit of time helping you understand what Meta Business Manager is and how it can work on your organization. So it used to be Facebook Business Manager, but again, they've changed their name to Meta. So Meta Business Manager is that umbrella layer of management that sits above your Facebook page, above your Instagram account, that allows you to use those platforms from a higher level of marketing. It allows you to run and track ads. It allows you to manage multiple assets like pages and ad accounts, including permission levels. And it allows you to add an agency or a marketing partner to help you do some of this. I know some of the people on the call have used my services in the past, operating as an agency or a marketing partner. And so utilizing these platforms allows you to tie in some of those folks. So how does Business Manager look? At the highest level, from an ad perspective, what you're looking at can be a little bit confusing. This is a chart that is kind of the default screen for Ads Manager, and it's showcasing all of the ads, the campaigns, the ad sets that appear on behalf of a particular organization. We can show it live, but I think one of the key things that I find most people have a hard time understanding is just the setup of the system itself. And it is really three structures, and it starts at the highest level at the campaign level. Anytime you're going to engage in a social advertising campaign, it is at the campaign level where you will set the objective for that campaign. It's here that you will say, we are trying to drive traffic. We are trying to generate leads. We are trying to just build awareness and reach as many people as possible. At that campaign level is where you will set that objective. It is also at that campaign level where you will set a total campaign spending limit. This isn't necessarily where I budget out how much I'm spending for ads, but it is kind of that safeguard at the campaign level to say, hey, at the end of the day, I don't want to spend more than $1,000, or I don't want to spend more than $10,000. So let's put a governor on this campaign to make sure that we don't break the bank and spend more than we're supposed to. The next tier is going to be that ad set level. And that ad set level, I always encourage people to think about it as the audience level. This is where we will determine who is seeing our advertising. It is where Facebook or Meta, or whatever you want to call it, will allow you to target specific audiences. And we'll talk about building those audiences next, because in targeting specific people on these platforms, it's how we reach those people most likely to respond to the particular ads that you might be serving. A campaign can have multiple ad sets, each with different targeting, each with different scheduling, and each with different budgeting options selected. So you may have an ad set of, we're going to retarget people who visited our website. You may have an ad set of, we're going to target people who live within 10 miles of our parish boundaries. We might have an ad set based on, we're going to target people who exhibit this type of behavior or have this type of demographics. And then within each ad set, not to keep the tree growing, but you will have any number of different ads. You can change creative. You can have an ad with a blue image and an ad with a red image to see which one of those performs better. You can have different videos. You can have text, different calls to action at an ad level. You can have multiple ads within an ad set. So let's say that you built one campaign that had 3 ad sets, each with their own 3 ads, and maybe those are duplicate ads, but serving to different ad sets. What you're going to end up seeing is 9 ads total within those 3 ad sets within that one campaign. So understanding how campaigns, ad sets, and ad sets work is one of the biggest challenges that I see people struggling with. But if you can wrap your head around it, it really can yield great results from any ad campaign you might build in the social sense. The key really does come down to targeting the right people with the right content at the right time. And that really hinges on building your audience appropriately. So what I'm highlighting here are just the various options that you have when it comes to building an audience within Facebook or Meta. Now, this audience is going to cross lines between Facebook and Instagram, so you can advertise to both platforms. You can select an audience based on location. You can highlight, I want this zip code and this zip code, but not these zip codes. I want this city, and I'm going to expand the radius around that particular location. Or I'm going to drop a pin right on our church, and we're going to say, reach everyone within 10 miles, 20 miles, 50 miles. You can select an audience based on age and gender, and you can select it based on demographics, interests, or behaviors. This is where I try to do most of the customization work with audiences for clients. Now, up until about 6 months ago, I was able to isolate audiences based on interests in the Catholic Church. Now, Facebook has removed that particular level of interest that allows me to highlight those people. So working with ministries and organizations and churches, it has become a little bit more challenging in how do we isolate and find specific audiences that may be receptive to the advertising that we're putting out there, because we can no longer base an ad campaign based on religious preferences or interests that they may have shown online. So we have to find some other ways that we can do that. We can do that by zip code, by location. We can do it by age and gender. And we can do it by a number of different other demographics, interests, or behaviors. Some of the patterns that are still available in there include marital status. So you can target people who are engaged or newly engaged. You can target people who are married, newly married. You can target people who are parents of kindergartners, parents of preschoolers, parents of middle-aged kids. The depth and breadth of the available categorizations is pretty deep. And you can also choose to build an audience based on connection type. So you can say, just target this to the people that like my page, or target the people who like my page and their friends, or target people who have attended an event with my organization, target people who have some type of connection to the organization or ministry that I represent. But building that audience really is key to making sure that those ads are going to be successful at the end of the day. And then the last thing I've shared, just from running multiple ad campaigns from multiple organizations, 3 things to know about social ads is, one, the multiple layers of permissions between page admins, business admins, ad account admins, Instagram account sign-ins. It can be very confusing and hard to navigate. So keeping a clean list of who has the right levels of permission to the right account is going to be key anytime that you're going to embark upon a social advertising campaign, to make sure that the ads are going to the right place, the person who is building those ads has the right levels of permission, and that when Facebook sends an invoice, it's going to the right place. Audience building can be tricky. If the audience that you build is too narrow and too small, your ads just won't get shown. And so if you're trying to isolate, I'm trying to reach, 40-year-olds named Patrick who are parishioners at St. Michael, if you were going to try to isolate to a handful of people, it's just not going to happen. If your audience is too large, conversely, it goes to too many people and that it isn't the right people, and you end up paying for clicks from people that have no business really clicking on your ads to begin with. So building and finding that right audience is tricky, and does take some trial and error to get there. And then lastly, within any social advertising, images with no text, I have found always perform images with text. So often clients will want to put, logos and text and, click here in this big event, and they'll put, big headlines within images. Removing all of that text from the images and saving that text for the headline of the ad, the description of the ad, or the call to action button that appears with the ad is always going to help that ad perform better than if you were to leave that text within that particular image. So, all right. That brings me to the end, and I recognize that I did not leave a ton of time for questions. I've been monitoring the chat, but I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have. Happy to delve directly into Facebook if people would like. So.
Thank you, Patrick. If anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute and share your question. I I don't know if that's a good sign or not, Patrick. Oh, Renee,
Silence
did
is
you unmute?
gold.
No?
Yeah. Nice. Well, thank you, Lisa.
All right.
Hopefully, people found some bit of information. I always say 201 is trickier. But if you found one nugget, 2 nuggets of information that help you do your job a little bit better today and moving forward, then we'll consider this a success. Please know that at any point in time, should you have follow-up questions, or you get off the webinar and you're like, oh wait, I was curious about this, please connect with KP Consulting. And simple questions, I'm happy to fire off responses. I am invested in the success of the church, so I would be happy to answer some simple questions. Or if it's something larger that we'd love for KP Consulting to run our campaign, or to help us out in a professional capacity, I'm sure Katie and myself would love to hear from you as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Patrick. Seeing no questions, I'll go ahead and wrap us up. I just want to, again, thank you, Patrick, for your time today, and thank you all for joining us. We will send a note when this recording is available on our website, so you will receive an email from us after the fact. As a communications team that serves parishes, schools, and ministries, we do truly believe that the future of their Catholic faith is in embracing co-responsible leadership and equipping the laity with the right tools to be in the world and not of it. And so we hope that you have found some valuable information in today's webinar. As part of our commitment to co-responsibility, we want to make as many resources as available possible for you. So please continue to engage with us. As a reminder, we do have 2 more webinars planned for later this year, October 7th, November 4th, and you will receive the link in our follow-up email with this meeting's recording to be able to register for those. So thank you again. We also have a blog series where we feature highlights and resources from a variety of members from our team. So Liz Henning, Patrick Powers here, Beth Laver, Ann Steffens, Claire Clausen, Steve Mamanella are all sharing information. Oh, and Angie Shelton. We have a lot of different members of our team who have experience working with and for the church as it relates to communications. So look for their guest posts on our blog. We plan to send a survey after today's session to be able to hear from you as to what other topics might be valuable for you for future webinars. And I would be remiss to not say, if you do not follow us on Facebook, please don't hesitate to look up KPC. So we are on Facebook as KP Consulting, and on Instagram as kp.consulting group. So please do stay in touch with us and continue to engage with us. And we look forward to serving you in the future. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.